Namaskaram, Rosie. How are you doing? Good to see you, my friend. Can you hear me, Rosie?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Welcome for this webinar, and I'm really pleased that you're going to talk to people about sustainable architectures, sensible way of living, and it'll be so interesting. And I've been through your philosophy, and I completely agree with what you're doing. So, and we have lots of people here who are interested in knowing more about your work. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, Shanji. How are you, Harpreet? Good evening, Iqbal, Mahendraji, Visheshi. Welcome. And there are more people joining in. Lots of people already. Pramodji, Sharmila ma'am, how are you doing? Kusum sir, how are you doing? James, Brian, good to see you, my friend Brian. Brian is from Worcester, a very dear friend. And we've got Lalita ji, we've got, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So, while other people are joining in, I'm just going to give them a second more, 30 seconds more. Can you just say something, Rosie, so that I know that you're audible and people can hear you well?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being online today and taking the interest to give me some of your time so I can tell you about what I do. Thank you so much, Mohit sir, for giving me this opportunity to talk about, our work and, hopefully not bore these people on sustainability and how it's important and how it's relevant in almost every field in life.
So whether it's interesting or boring is not the question. The idea is to live sensibly. The idea is to respect what this planet has given us. And the idea is to, use it, with being judicious and sensible. So it's very important for all of us to know where we're headed. Great. So friends, I'm going to quickly introduce Rosie to you. She's from Mason Inc., and it's a company that is her own company. So let me read out her introduction. Rosie Paul. So it's about Rosie Paul. Before setting up her own practice, Rosie Paul was the head architect at Auroville Earth Institute. She has a postmaster degree from Urban Architecture, Local Building Cultures and Sustainable Habitat from CRA Terra, France, the UNESCO chair for Urban Architecture. She's been involved with several projects executed during Earth Technologies, both locally and internationally, including Egypt, Morocco, and France. Along with managing projects at Masons Inc., she's an Earth consultant to select international non-profit organizations. Wow, that's wonderful. So that's Rosie's introduction, and you'll get to know more about her when she starts to present. And a quick presentation, introduction about me. I am Mohit Agarwal. I'm an experiential ecotourism specialist with a deep love for nature. I help people to travel to some wonderful places in Asia. I'm on the board of Asian Ecotourism Network, and I've been trained and certified by GSTC in sustainable tourism. I'm the founder of Asian Adventure, the 27-year-old travel outfit. It is the largest bird watching tour company in India. I'm also the founder of Neta, a value email marketing company that is now working towards strengthening communication for wildlife outfits. So these companies are on a large mission to help Asian elephants with their corridors, free the Himalayas of plastic waste, help small wildlife NGOs, and also conserve the ancient Himalayan shrines. So that was a bit about me. And I think most of the people already know me, and some of them are new. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again. And over to you, Rosie. Please go ahead and say what you have to say.
Yes. So, hello everyone. I will be speaking about sustainability in architecture, and it's so wonderful to hear, the conviction with which Mohit sir talks about, tourism and how you need to have the sense to be sustainable even when you travel, and even during your leisure times. That it's a pleasure to be talking to y'all. I think the audience is mixed with maybe architects and also non-architects, so I will try and make what I'm saying as understandable as I can. So what I will be mainly doing is taking you through a project that we did, which is very close to our hearts. And whenever we speak of sustainability, this is the one project that really stands out in terms of the fact that we feel that it was really true to what it was meant to be, and even from the start, how everything fell into place. Sustainability was one of the main aspects that we considered at every stage. So even from before construction, during the planning of this, but even before that, actually, ever since this client came to us and asked us, saying that he wants to build a farmhouse in his farm. We asked him a little bit more about his farm, and he said it was an organic farm. So it already started from there, where this person had an organic farm, and he was very particular that anything that he grows on that land will do benefit to that land. And in some areas, so his farm is about 25 acres. So in some areas which had already kind of suffered ill effects of fertilizers, he was healing the soil first by not working on it and kind of fertilizing it with natural fertilizers before he even planted or did anything with it. So when we saw this client, and when we saw how much he means, what sustainability means to him, we wanted to be fair to his aspirations, and we decided, even the house we build needs to be as sustainable as possible. So without further ado, I will start the presentation. Do let me know if you can see the screen and if I'm audible. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can, and you're also audible, but I'd like people in the audience to say yes if they can see your screen and if you're audible.
Shall I start?
Yes, you're audible and you're good to go.
Okay. So we are Masons Inc. Studio. It's an interesting name. Maybe I'll come back to it after this presentation. So this is a studio which is run by me and a dear friend of mine, Sridevi Changali. So I specialize in sustainable techniques, especially focusing on natural materials. And she specializes in heritage conservation. So these two really go hand in hand, when it comes to heritage. I mean, conserving heritage buildings is one of the most sustainable ways, because you're increasing the life of a building. So that's us. Maybe more about us towards later on. So let me take you through this journey, a journey that we completely enjoyed. I hope you will enjoy it as well. So welcome to Ramaram. Ramaram is the name of this project that was given by the client itself. Ramaram means beautiful woods. And this is the farmhouse that I was talking about, which is about 25 acres. And this is the house that we built on it, which was about, I think, 4,000 square feet, including all the semi-open spaces and the verandas, etc. So A closer look into this, I'd already explained how, how this project came to be with a client who is very environmentally conscious and who has, decided to dedicate his life to organic farming. He was earlier an IT professional who quit his job, said he wants no more of that, and decided to do this instead. So right from the start, it was pretty clear that we needed to think in a sustainable way, right from the planning process all through the construction process, and even in the operational processes of this building. So, when we think of sustainability, it's actually quite simple. To bring it about is quite simple. I think the jargon is what makes people think that it's complicated, or it's something that you need to really, it's some kind of expertise that you need to kind of skill up and everything. But at the end of the day, I would say it's something that is very basic and very core to your being human and being good to your environment and good to the people around you. So to simplify this, I would say it's best to look at three main aspects when we think of sustainability. I would say no matter what field you're looking at. I'm an architect and that's what I practice, so I'll be talking about architecture. But the three main aspects would be whatever you're doing, what is the impact on the environment, what is the socio-cultural impact that what you're doing has on what is on when I mean socio-cultural, I mean the people and their culture of that region, and what are the socio-economic impacts that your project has on in that region again. I think it will get more simplified as I move forward. But this is the building that I'm going to be talking about. We used almost everything in this building is used from natural materials, except for certain areas where we needed to kind of tie the building together from Indian standard norms. At different places you need horizontal ties, which is out of concrete. Other than that, everything is using natural materials or recycled or repurposed from something else. Yeah, more photos coming along. So this is just a picture of what the land looked like, and it's extremely beautiful, and it's about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away from Bangalore. So when you come from a city like that, and when you see this, you almost feel sad to build anything on this. So it came almost naturally to us, to whatever comes on this doesn't stand out too much and says here I am, but more kind of blends in to the whole environment, and it just doesn't feel alien to its surroundings. So that's how this whole thing came about. So now coming to how the planning aspect was, what all we looked at was, first of all, so like I said, right, there are three phases. So during the planning and the layout also it's important. So in this time, what we look at is, of course, the microclimate. That is, what is the temperature in that area, and then we look at how the sun travels and what is the wind direction and everything, and try to kind of use that to our benefit, so that during the operational cost, that is when the building is being used, there's enough natural light and there's enough ventilation to kind of avoid air conditioning and other artificial sources of improving the comfort of the person living in that house. So that's one thing we look at in our layouts and planning, and we strongly inspire from the local architecture or the local vernacular, we call it, where if you see, it's 2.5 hours from Bangalore, so it's actually set in a village in Tamil Nadu. So even the elements that we've used inspire from the villages nearby. So, sloping roofs, large verandas, courtyards where possible. And what's interesting is that for a fact, traditional architecture always responded to the local climate. So, you're just making things simpler by learning and imbibing from it. than trying to reinvent the wheel and look at how we do this and not succeeding in that. And it's always good to learn from their past than forget it and move on. So that's what we've done. So you will see this building has verandas. So this is from the entrance. This is what you see. You have these large verandas where you can sit and kind of look into his where he can come and look into his farm and see what is happening. So it's like it's a veranda that kind of envelopes the building. So another thing that this does is also it helps for him to have a congregation to come and meet and discuss things. So in villages, that's another thing that happens, that it's not a panchayat, but there are these leaders of the village that come and talk about everything that's happening and see how they can improve things in the village, etc. So this veranda actually incorporates that aspect as well. So that's also kind of trying to make the culture live on. So it's important, like I said earlier, one of the things to look at is the socio-cultural aspects. Like how can your building, in my case, my building kind of help in promoting the culture than it getting, it being totally alien to it, and slowly that culture itself disappears. So, this veranda kind of lends itself for various things. So culture being, these discussions being one of them. Another thing is it helps to also like dry your spices or air out certain things. So they are large, wide verandas, so you can use that for the produce of the farm in the case that it just needs to kind of air out, etc. So now moving on. So this is just a picture of the courtyard that is there in the structure. So again, courtyards is I don't want to get too technical, but courtyards is again very traditional elements that you find in the local architecture of South India, at least, where the climate is very tropical. You've got very hot summers and you have very heavy monsoons. So, the courtyard actually helps to better ventilate your spaces. And so in most of our designs, if the space allows for it or not, we try and find some way or the other to incorporate this element, because it's excellent to bring in light and ventilation into spaces. So now I will just go into the kind of materials that we used. So I spoke a little bit about the cultural aspects. I had also told you about the environmental aspects. So when we look at the environment, there are a few things that come into play. It is the materials that we use to build with. So unfortunately, the construction industry is one of the largest contributors to the greenhouse emissions today. So it is really important that the buildings or the structures that are being built, no matter whether in an urban or a rural context, because everyone is moving towards more and more development. So we cannot afford to slack off on any kind of construction. So be it residential, be it commercial, be it high-rise buildings, low-rise, no matter what, I think this aspect of being sustainable or trying to use better materials needs to be kind of the norm nowadays, especially when we can see the aspects of climate change and all the disasters that are coming along with it. So I tend to get carried away, so I'll come back to the slide. So here I'm talking about the materials that we used in this building. So one of the things that we noticed when we came to site, when we first visited site, was the rocky nature of this terrain. So we said, and then we also saw, like as we traveled to the site, we also saw this rough stone laying work, which was done by the villagers themselves to kind of retain either soil or to retain water from certain areas. So it was very beautiful work that we had seen, and we said, why not try and incorporate that into the building? So these stones were got from site itself and sized by the local stone mason there, and we had a good fun time, I would say, trying to make him understand how, because he was used to dry stacking. So when it comes into a building and it's a structural element, there needs to be mortar that binds these large pieces of stone together. So it was interesting to make him understand that, we want it, like we like the beauty of the irregular faces and everything, but we just needed to kind of hold in place and be able to take the load that it needs to take. So this is a very interesting wall that we created in union with, with the local people there, because it's always fun to kind of have that exchange and share and improve your skill and theirs in the process. So I think we have a picture of a finished room, finished wall later on, which you will also get to see. Now the walls, we decided, best to use what is so abundantly available, and he had a 25-acre farm, so we said let's go with soil, and these are load-bearing soil mud blocks actually. So you see that there are no columns in the structure. Like I said, the only places that used concrete were the bands and one slab that we had to do in one area, because he said he might want to, he's a farmer and he also likes to give workshops and stuff. So when people come, maybe they can put up tents on his terrace and live there while they have courses on the farm. So we had one area which was flat. That also, we try to reduce the cement in it by using a specific technique. I don't think there's a photo of that in this presentation. They're called filler slabs. So, you try and reduce the amount of cement that goes onto the slab by adding waste materials. It can be whichever material, wherever you don't need that. So, you have to study the load, and then place these materials where cement is not required. So the walls were made out of mud blocks. And moving on, so what was also interesting is then we came to the roof and we needed wood. And we were, like I said, we were very particular that we try and not cut any trees. So not only when the building is coming up, but also in the in the materials that the building uses. So we didn't cut a single tree on site when we planned it. So we chose a parcel of the land without any trees so that we can build over there. And secondly, when it came to the windows or the columns, etc., we looked at other wood that was already used for something else, but that the use has died, so that's available. We took that, we repurposed it, and used it in our building. So if you see, the wooden, we call them rafters, but the wooden elements that you see that make up the roof, that is actually part of an old dilapidated factory which had this wooden framework. And the owner of that, and it was very close to this site, about 2-3 kilometers from here. So the owner was more than happy to kind of give us those wooden pieces for a decent price. And we used it in as members in the roof. We had to resize it a little bit, reshape it. So what is interesting is, again, over here we used, the local carpenter. And he is so used to people coming to him and saying new wood, good wood. He was so confused at the end of this, what we were looking for, because sometimes he would try and, put putty and cover up the holes where the bolts came in. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's you can see it on the wooden elements. Actually, they look like dots on it. They were actually areas where the other member came and fit into it with a bolt, and we actually kept that. We said no, let's keep it on, because that would actually tell a story, the story of where that element came from, and that's very important we feel, because like us, everything has a story. Like all the materials have a story, and we prefer it that way than it just coming from a factory or something. It's so much nicer if it was, for instance, the mud blocks, they were handmade. Obviously there was love that went into making those blocks. The wood was used as something else, and then it's come here and it's being used as this. So there are stories that are weaved even through the construction of the building. Now, coming to this is just a picture of the stairs that we had provided for coming onto the terrace. So the building, I mean, the site was naturally kind of sloped. So there was not. I mean, it was easy to provide steps, only this many steps from that level onto the terrace of the building. We said, why not again use like rough stones and create this? So what was interesting is the arch that you see here was made. The arch is a curved, pathway that you see. So this was the first time that the mason was doing something like this, because again, it was a local mason that we used, and we showed him how arches work, and he simply loved it. And now he's gone on to make other buildings which have arches in it. So like I said, it was a really good exchange of knowledge and exchange of perspectives and exchange of cultures as well. And earlier I'd spoken about the stone dry stacked walls. What you see behind the staircase, you see some retaining walls out of stone. So that is the kind of dry stacking that we saw as we were coming to the village and also all around. So we said that was the one we inspired from and actually made a wall that looks similar. So I have already spoken about the local labor that we used, but how does it fit into the whole story or the aspect of sustainability is going back to the three main things I said we need to look at. One was the environment, which was covered in the kind of materials we use. The second was the socio-cultural aspects, so that how we incorporated the culture and we encourage that through our planning. Now, when we come to the socio-economic aspects, so I think in every field, what it's important to look at is how is the project that you're, working on contributing to the local economy. So, use of local labor, the use of local materials actually helps in promoting local economy and local livelihoods, and that is another sustainable aspect that many people forget about these days. So we used, and it was interesting how we found the mason. We just went around the village looking for houses that were built well. So not necessarily in like natural materials, but houses that you can make out that it's been built with care. So then we found this mason and we trained him in building with natural materials. And we are so happy that he loved it, and then he's gone on to build many more buildings with mud. So someone who was using, cement blocks and nothing really non-conventional, kind of changed course after this building and has built many more natural buildings. So this is how we hope to kind of slowly but surely change the world, you can say. But yeah, so this is one success story that we really hold dear to our hearts. And on days that that are not so great, it's great to think of the success stories and those help us kind of move forward without giving up. So this is another aspect that we try and do. So Masons Inc. Has a mission of also kind of doing a lot of outreach and awareness programs. So even this session that I'm having with you all is part of the outreach and awareness, because unless you talk to more people about what is sustainability and actually how simple it is, a lot of people are misinformed, especially with the kind of marketing that goes on these days, and things that are green are not actually green. And people think that sustainability is expensive, blah blah blah, but like the core aspect of it is getting lost. So it's up to its actors who believe in it and who do it to kind of get out there and tell more and more people about it. So this is one of the things that we do. So what we try and do is also on our sites that are building using sustainable materials, we bring on people of all ages, kids, students, college students, professionals, anyone and everyone interested in sustainability and wanting to know how to do it. And we build small elements with them. So it could be over a timeline of a day or 2 days or a week, depending on what we want to achieve. And that way you get a very hands-on approach of what sustainability can be, and what are the techniques that you can probably use in your buildings when you build your house eventually. So this is also just a little bit more about our outreach. We not only focus, so this is not only when it comes to sustainability, it's also when it comes to heritage conservation. As I said, that's another specialization that we focus on. And we have a lot of workshops that focus on sustainability, heritage, etc. So a result of the efforts to use local, both in material and labor, and also look at, I did not speak about the operational part of the building. So that is when when you're using the house. So we finish the house. So very often, like architects sometimes forget that the responsibility doesn't end when the building is finished. It continues on how it's being used as well. So that's where the clients also have the responsibility. And the architect's responsibility is to ensure that we provide everything that the client needs to be able to kind of live more sustainably. So this house has been designed to be completely off-grid. It uses biogas for cooking. It harvests all the rainwater, and some of it is reused in gardening, etc., and some of it goes into ground percolation. So even the operational processes have been looked at in how to use them and how to use renewable energy to make this building run. So finally, what you end up with is a house that's quite simple. It doesn't blend in. I mean, it doesn't stand out, but actually blends into its environment. It uses natural materials. It's simple in its design and honest to its cause, and I feel that's what brings the beauty of the building as well. So just going to the picture. So this is the completed stone wall that that took some effort, but we are quite happy with how it turned out. And I think even so, the other thing is that everybody who was involved in this building was very proud of it at the end of it. So not only us being the architects, but the students who came on board to kind of help complete this, the laborers that were there, the helpers, the client. So all in all, I would say a great success story. So this is just a picture of, even when it comes to the bathrooms, we had very simple details to bring in light, natural light, and the materials we used were also, oxide. So cement oxide is a quite a traditional finish that has been in use in our country, especially in South India. I think also in North India for a long time. So it's a process of adding some color into the cement and then kind of rubbing it and making it and polishing it with certain oils, and which becomes water resistant at the end of its, once it's completed. So that's the picture you see on the right, which is blue. So we added a blue color into the cement mix. And on the left, you see, if you look at the wall, we actually incorporated a mud plaster in the wall, and we inserted leaves on it to kind of give a leaf imprint. So actually, this was just this is an idea that we had, and the mason kind of took it up as his artistic piece, and he didn't want us to have much with it, but he just loved, adding this element in and making it more, how do I say, beautiful. Um, so this is what we finally had. I think earlier you saw an image in the night, and this is how it looked after it was complete. So the columns were also, the columns, I mean the pillars, were also sourced from elsewhere, from houses that were demolished earlier. So the client had actually collected these columns and kept. So he had like a set number of columns. So, but then, none of them actually looked the same. He might have had 4 that looked similar, and then the other 5 looked different. So actually, these columns are not the same height, and we kind of played with it in the design as well. So right now you're looking at the front side. So the front side, because they were short columns, we had these raised platforms on which they were placed. On the side, they had much taller columns. So those are, full columns that go from top to bottom. And right in front of the courtyard, he had also stone columns. So we placed them in the veranda in front of the stone wall. So, it did take a little bit of effort to kind of include everything in. Another interesting story is this tree that you see over here, which is right in front of the house. So the client's wife came to us and said that, we need to cut the tree. And then we asked her what happened. When this was when the walls had just started coming up, and she said, this tree is right in front of the entrance door, and that's bad luck. Vasu, it doesn't allow for it. So let's just cut the tree. I'm not comfortable to have a tree right in front of, that is in front of the house. So we actually said, no, let's not cut this tree, because it's a beautiful tree, and it looks different in every season, and it adds so much to the site, and we didn't want to go back on our quest to do this house without cutting a single tree. So we actually changed the entrance. We moved it, and we changed the design around a little bit, so that she could be happy with the new entrance, and we could be happy with saving the tree. So I think I think we were rewarded well, because it looks beautiful in photos. I know this photo, you don't see it too well. You don't see the leaves, but it is a beautiful giant tree that I'm so glad that we could save. So yeah, this is where I end my presentation. I hope it was interesting for you all, and yeah, this is what goes into our life, almost our professional lives. Every time a project comes along, this is all the aspects that we think of, and yeah, so that's just a picture of all of that on our drawing boards. And thank you. I think I can open for questions. One last thing is, if you're interested in what we do and you want to know more about us, I will put our website link on the chat box, so you can. We are called Masons Inc. Studio. So the spelling is a little different, INK and not INC. But yeah, that's, as architects, we have these weird, we get too excited and we make these changes that makes it difficult for the layman to find us. But yeah, I will put it up in the chat box. So in case you want to know more about the stuff we do, or, we also have blogs which talk about different techniques that help the viewer kind of try out certain natural finishes and all that if they're interested. So do check us out, and contact us if you need any more information on anything. Thank you.
So that was absolutely wonderful, 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 Sridevi. Thank you for bringing this experience to us. One thing that I've been, looking at for a few years now is that whenever we repair our buildings or whatever buildings that we come up with, we also should incorporate bird nests. There is an NGO in Europe called Swift Conservation. So they've been doing a lot of work in different countries, and in England and in the Netherlands, where they build, they have pre-made bricks which they fit into the walls and they fit into the roofs, and they allow swifts to come down and nest because they're always on the wing. These swifts don't come down, unless they're breeding, and they spend the rest of their lives flying around. So it's important that when they come down to breed, they have some place to breed, and these breeding nests are there because a lot of these habitats have been taken over by urbanization and by different things. So maybe you could consider that in future as a bird lover. This is what I strongly suggest. Now let's go to your questions. There are many people who want to ask you things, and so Sham is asking, what is the area and the total cost?
Yes, so as I said earlier, the area is around 4,000 square feet, including all the verandas and everything. The cost, so this building was completed in 2017, 2018. So we at that point, I think the going construction rate was around 1,600 rupees per square foot, and we were able to achieve 1,200 rupees a square foot. Like, that is a huge difference. But I think that was because we went completely local, right? We got most of our resources from the site itself or around the site. We used local labor, so there was no contractor margins or anything that we needed to look at. But the downside of not having a contractor or being a little bit informal in the kind of labor we use is also that the timelines kind of get stretched out because the local labor were also farmers. So every time there was harvest or something was needed in the village, they would stop the work and go for that. The client was fine with that. He, like I said, he came with the intention of being as sustainable as possible. So he was more than happy. So I think this building, so normally a house like this would take about 12 to 15 months to complete completely. This took about 18 to 21 months. So that's the give and take.
Excellent. Piyush wants to know a bit about Mason's ink. So could you just briefly say, how it sort of formed, how it would form, how did it come into being? What did you do?
Yeah. So Mason's Ink was, came about in 2013. Me and a friend of mine who was, so we had common interests. We both loved heritage conservation. We both loved sustainability. Just that through life, we decided to kind of focus on different things, and then we decided why not kind of bring our powers or interests together and start something. So that's how Mason's Ink came about. I'd like to maybe take some time to explain why the name. It's people are confused by this name because it's like, are you Masons? What does this name mean? So the idea is that many times when a building is built, the architect is of course becomes famous. We talk about it, they get awards, everything, but what people forget are the hands that kind of built it. It's the masons. So we wanted to kind of, our name, to kind of give them the tribute to everything beautiful that they create for us and make our dreams a reality. So that's why Masons, and our plans use ink, so Mason's Ink. And another kind of meaning is that we believe in being hands-on, in our projects. So we actually do go on site, and we, like I said, we train masons to build with mud. Sometimes they train us on how to, build certain things that we don't know because our backgrounds are the same. So, we become masons on site as well. So masons who ink. So yeah,
Fantastic.
So it's got many meanings.
So Lester is from Sri Lanka. He wants to know, what oils would you use for water resistance and for giving the surface whatever water resistance that you can give.
So it's a very interesting question. Thank you, Lester. Actually, I did this entire research on how traditionally, before cement started being used for, cement or other industrial products started being used for, water resistance, what was going in. So what is interesting is that I mean, in one village there itself, there are so many traditional know-how that exists in that area that uses different elements. So my study was actually based out of Kerala, and it was looking into what are the elements that were added into plasters to make them more water resistant, more resistant to mechanical shock, etc. And sometimes it's not even oils; it's products of plants. I don't know if many of you have heard of kaduka. It's a seed. If you put in water in a day, the water becomes black. So that water is actually added into the plaster to make it more water resistant. This is also added in line buildings and line plasters. Even old buildings used to add this to kind of make it more water resistant. There are oils as well. There is I think you're referring to the oil that I said to make the oxide shine. So cement is already water resistant. So that's why many people think that's the go-to for all. The downside of cement is that it's not responsive to climate. It really heats up when you have summers. So it's not the best material to use in our buildings like how we do. So we've kind of dedicated our lives to, it feels like we've dedicated our lives to cement, where all the buildings are like cement, everyone wants to use cement. So I always give this example of the difference between a mud house and a cement house is probably to understand it better. Maybe you consider an earthen pot filled with water, and you keep that in the sun. The water still stays cool because the soil has it has those properties to keep the water cool, versus a tin container in which you put water, and you get to choose which water you want to drink from. What would you go with? You would definitely choose the one in the earthen pot, right? So that's the other thing that we say, like, if you have a choice, you should definitely go with natural materials and mud if possible, and use cement where necessary. Cement is not a bad material. It's the overuse of materials that kind of leads to problems. Now, coming back to your question of oils, so in the bathroom, the oxide was later on polished with coconut oil and coconut fiber, so that keeps a good shine on the surface. But when it comes to mud plasters or flooring, we use plant additives. Sometimes we even use egg white, jaggery. So it's not exactly oil, but maybe products of fruit, or it's another presentation altogether. So maybe one time I can probably cover this, because I think Mohit sir has decided that we do this a few times so that we can talk more in detail about different things.
Absolutely. So we also in the hills have the similar problems with wood, maintaining wood, and everybody who wants to says, "Oh, let's just put some sort of chemical on it, or let's use something else." And I say I want to use flaxseed oil. It might darken the wood, but the point is the longevity of wood will be there. So many such issues. Sham is asking, mud blocks or baked bricks? What did you use?
Yeah, so we have used mud blocks in this. So even baked bricks, I think when compared to cement, fare slightly better, but when you're baking a brick, there's a lot of pollution that goes into it because they're baked in kilns, and it contributes a lot to the pollution that to air pollution. So when you compare mud blocks and baked bricks, mud blocks kind of take priority. And the strength of these mud blocks are got from compressing them. So the strength increases, and they're able to be load bearing bricks that are used in construction. And in the case in South India, because of the heavy rains and everything, we do stabilize it very mildly with cement. So 5%, 3 to 5% of cement is added. This is more for making it more resistant to torrential rains, or in the case of floods, etc. Otherwise, there is so I was earlier with Audible Earth Institute in Audible Tamil Nadu, and we had done a project in Spiti Valley. So there it doesn't rain, so the entire building is made out of raw earth. So there is not a bit of cement added to it, and that's an earthquake prone area. So again, only cement was added in certain tie beams that were given, and no other place was cement added to it. So yeah, so I think I saw a question where have you built in Himachal Pradesh? We haven't built there. I have been part of the project that we did in Spiti Valley. So I think Spiti is a little bit more harsh when it comes to the climate, but it's probably comparable if I'm not wrong.
Yes. So I'm also been overly bothered about losing the originality of these ancient temples in the Himalayas, ancient shrines, and overuse of cement, and non-judicious use of things which are just plastered to keep things intact, and over a period of time they just lose hold, and they just leave bad scars, or they also. A lot of these temples have this spiritual geometry tied around the architecture, which gets distorted over a period of time using, when you're fiddling around with the architecture. So it's very important to understand all of these things. I suggest that you announce another webinar where you talk about local materials. What material one should use when you're in Kerala, what material you should use when you're in Himachal, what you need to use when you're in Northeast, or, let's just give some examples, because a lot of people want to build further, repair further, promote ecotourism, ecolodges, community-based tourism, and it's really important for all of us. It is our responsibility to bring the right practices to people and not fall into the trap of general architects who will say, cement and this and that, and at the end of it, you want to. So people in Kumaon would say, "Oh, I built a Swiss home. Why are you building a Swiss home in Kumaon? Who would want to go and stay in a Kumaoni house in Switzerland? So there's a complete mismatch. It's important to educate people when it comes to architecture." Haseem is asking, do you still use limestone mortar in your assignments?
So where possible, we do use lime, but the thing is that it's largely because these are not our projects, like the money is coming from the client. So, the client, he or she has a large hold on what we can use. We of course suggest it, but what happens is, unfortunately, because of overuse of cement, the industries of lime have died down. So even the availability of that has died down, and hence the skill in doing lime plasters, the cost of lime versus cement, all of that has changed, and cement has actually, and also the subsidies that the government gives on cement makes it a very very affordable material to use, which is kind of having an effect on the lime. So wherever possible, we do try and so we don't. The other thing is we believe in not forcing our ideas onto anybody, because in the end they come back and say, I knew, like, everything, even if it is not the fault of the material that has been used, any issue that comes up will be blamed on the material that they don't trust. So what we do is we try and inform the client as much as we can, saying, these are the pros, these are the cons. Even if it is maybe slightly more expensive now, in the long run, it will do you benefit. So especially in terms of operational, these things like going for solar or rainwater harvesting, of course, there's a little bit more money that you as investment, but it has a huge this thing on your electrical costs, etc. So it is a mutual thing with the client that kind of finally gives you the product, because unless we are building our own place, then and we have the budget, and then we are completely free on doing what we like. But yes, that's I hope that answers your question on whether we use lime or not.
So thank you very much, Rosie. That was beautiful. Friends, if you've got more questions to ask, what you can do is go to her site and connect with her and with her partner, Sri Devi, who's also here right now. And then they can answer your questions right now unconditionally. I'm just saying unconditionally from my perspective, and I'm sure they will. And then I'm also going to get them back for various other dimensions of sustainable architecture, which will be useful for ecotourism and community-based tourism as we go along. Because according to me, a lot of inspiration is drawn when you're traveling around and when you stay in these nice, beautiful places, which you want to now, and you pick up these dimensions, and then you want to elements, and you want to go and, place them in your house in some way or the other. So if we can go right there, then we will be able to make you do right things as well. So that's one. Second thing is that next week, I'm going to get you lots of interesting webinars. Keep an eye out. We're going to be talking about how to record bird sounds. We're going to have a person who's going to talk to you about primates. And then we're going to have people who are going to talk about the bird fairs, Asian Bird Fair, and the context. But let me tell you, Mason's Inc. will be back soon. So thank you, friends, and thank you for being here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, ladies, especially Rosie and Sri Devi. Thank you for being here. Shabbat khair. Good night. I'll take your leave now, and hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good night. Good night.